Mr. Thomas Crenshaw, a multimillionaire, had purchased the Golden Plate Bistro restaurant just a few weeks ago. He wanted to learn about the workers already employed at the restaurant, so he came up with a simple plan. He disguised himself as a homeless man, wearing a worn-out, shabby brown jacket with patches and scuffed sneakers. Then, he visited the restaurant to buy food. Thomas had made his fortune in tech, but he had recently begun investing in the hospitality business. This restaurant was one of his first ventures, and he wanted to know the truth about how customers were treated, especially those who looked like they couldn't afford the fine dining experience. As he pushed open the glass door of the restaurant, the lively chatter of diners and the soft clinking of utensils greeted him. Thomas looked around, taking in the elegant decor, chandeliers hanging low, polished wooden floors, and beautiful tables. He shuffled to the corner and sat down. As he sat waiting for a waiter or waitress to attend to him, a woman with long blonde hair approached him. Her name tag read Margaret. Margaret, the senior waitress, glanced at him briefly before wrinkling her nose. "Can I help you?" she asked with a sharp tone. "Yes, ma'am," Thomas replied politely. "I'd like to see the menu." Margaret raised an eyebrow and gave him a once-over, her lips curling into a sneer. "I don't think this is the kind of place for you," she said. "We don't serve your type here." Thomas, maintaining his calm demeanor, replied, "I can pay for the food." Margaret's laugh was loud and dismissive. "With what? Don't waste my time." A few diners turned their heads, curious about the exchange. Thomas tried again. "Please, can I speak with the manager?" But Margaret wasn't having it. "Listen, I don't have time for this nonsense," she snapped. "Get out before I call security." The commotion caught the attention of Frank, the manager. He stormed over, his eyes darting to Thomas. "What's the problem here?" Frank barked. "This man is causing trouble," Margaret said. "He doesn't belong here." "I only asked to see the menu," Thomas replied calmly. Frank didn't bother listening. "Leave now, or I'll call the cops," he ordered. Thomas sighed with a shocking expression. Without another word, he turned and walked out, leaving behind murmurs from the diners who had witnessed the scene. Out on the sidewalk, Thomas pulled out his phone and made a call. "Mr. Garrison," he said, addressing the former owner of the restaurant, "we need to meet. There's something you should see." The following morning, Margaret and Frank were back at work, chatting in the staff room. Margaret couldn't stop bragging about how she handled the beggar. "People like him shouldn't even step into places like this," she said. Meanwhile, Thomas arrived at the restaurant in his usual polished look, accompanied by Mr. Garrison, the former owner. This time, there was no shabby outfit, just his commanding presence and tailored suit. When they entered the restaurant, the staff froze. Margaret's face turned pale as recognition dawned on her. Frank, too, shifted uncomfortably, but tried to maintain his composure. "Good morning," Thomas said with a calm voice. Margaret and Frank hurried over. "Welcome, sir," Frank said, forcing a smile. "How can we assist you?" Thomas ignored the question and turned to Mr. Garrison. "Shall we begin?" Mr. Garrison nodded and clapped his hands to gather the staff. "Everyone, meet Mr. Crenshaw," he announced. "He is the new owner of Golden Plate Bistro." The room fell silent. Margaret's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Frank's forced smile vanished, replaced by a look of dread. Thomas began addressing the staff. "I came here yesterday, dressed as someone who might not look like your typical customer. I wanted to see how people are treated in this establishment." His eyes landed on Margaret and Frank. "And what I experienced was unacceptable." Margaret tried to stammer an apology. "Sir, I didn't realize." Thomas raised a hand, silencing her. "That's the problem. You didn't realize because you didn't care. You judged me by my appearance and treated me poorly." Frank stepped forward, attempting to deflect the blame. "Mr. Crenshaw, I assure you, this was a misunderstanding." "Enough," Thomas interrupted. Your job as a manager is to ensure that every customer is treated with respect, regardless of how they look. Instead, you escalated the situation and refused to listen. He turned to Mr. Garrison. I think you have something to say as well. Mr. Garrison stepped forward. Margaret and Frank, you've both shown behavior that goes against everything this restaurant stands for. Effective immediately, you're both terminated. Gasps filled the room as the other staff members exchanged glances. Margaret looked like she might cry, while Frank's face burned with humiliation. Thomas addressed the remaining staff. Let this be a lesson. This restaurant will succeed only if we treat everyone with dignity. That's the standard I expect. As Thomas and Mr. Garrison left the restaurant, Margaret and Frank were left standing there, the weight of their actions sinking in. For the diners and employees who witnessed it all, one thing was clear: justice had been served. And this brings us to the end of this story. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends too. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories. Have a nice day.